Welcome to this special stream for the social engineering community all around our research component that will be happening this year in the Village at DEF CON 30. My name is Snow. I am one of the co-founders of the Village. My other co-founder, JC, unfortunately couldn't be here today, but I am joined by Dr. Professor Anshul Rege. What's the best way to say that? Is it Professor Doctor? You did all that work. You have to get credit for all of it.
Council is fine.
I'm joined by Anshul, who actually leads the research component of our village. Kind of going back to how this came to be, when JC and I were really excited going through the process of putting in our application to have our village this year, we wanted to bring some special stuff for our inaugural year. And one of the things we talked about was how do we further the craft? And that's when JC came up with the brilliant idea of research. We have all these things in social engineering when it comes to techniques and all these things that we're told, but we don't really get to try it out and test it and see what really works. That's where he came up with this research idea. And we both knew we needed someone to run it. Our lives are busy. We're working on so many things in this village, and we are excited to bring people into our community, and the more hands the merrier. We were thinking, who can help run this? And my mind immediately went to Anshul. I know her background with academia and her love of social engineering. She was the perfect person to bring in to this component. Very, very excited to have you on the team, Anshul. Thank you for being here too and chatting with me today.
Oh my gosh, it's such a pleasure and an honor. And I remember Snow when you JC reached out and said, "Hey, we're doing this research component. Do you want to be a part of it?" I didn't even have to think about it. It was a no-brainer. It's a yes. And what excites me is that we're thinking about research in this space, which I don't think it's done enough of. It's severely downplayed. So that really, really excited me. And I'm super psyched about this whole component.
Perfect. Yes. So glad you're on board. Let's just jump into some questions. I know I've gotten a lot of questions from folks like, what exactly is it? You say research. Well, what does that mean? My question to you, my first question is, what would you say the whole research event that's happening in the village this year? How would you explain that?
Yeah. I think the best way that I like to think of research is, have you ever been curious about something to see what would happen if, or what happens when? And if you're already having those types of thoughts in your mind, guess what? You're a researcher at heart. And what we want to do through this is really encourage you to think more along those lines. And, as an academic, I can say this as a researcher in this space is it's one of those areas in cybersecurity research, education, training that is that has really limited understanding about this is how can we really study how the human factor is leveraged. What we want to do is start thinking more systematically about this, start thinking more empirically about this. And that's what I think this research event helps do, that is it offers that springboard to start getting us to think along those lines and really start testing out different types of questions, hypotheses, variables. I think that's really fantastic because it starts that dialogue, which is currently severely lacking, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And just a reminder that for our research component this year, it's going to be around vishing. We have our amazing soundproof booth that we got. It's really cool. We have a tweet about it that shows a little bit of the teaser of it, so you can see a bit of it. But it is strictly around vishing. And if you go through the proposal, you can see a bunch of questions there, and we'll break down some of those questions now. But the first question I have is, when we say research, is that one person? Is it a group of people? How many people can be involved when they go to submit a proposal?
It could be one person, it could be as many as four. And I think that breakdown is wonderful because maybe one person is like perfect at handling all sorts of components, but maybe you have a group of people that have their own expertise. Maybe someone's really good at brainstorming and adapting. Maybe someone's really good at speaking to someone on the phone and trying to convince someone to do something. how you want to form your team together, bring different skill sets to the table so that you have that synergy and creativity and you can develop like, really cool ideas. We do want to encourage if you and it helps too, like if you're maybe want to trying that out and you're not sure if you can do it on your own, maybe you want to have a group of friends or folks that you work with that would boost your confidence. You could have fun with it. Like, hey, this is something that you do as a team bonding thing too. It can be a one person, it can be a group of four, or anything in between.
Perfect. Can you kind of throw a couple of ideas of what a good research topic might be as it relates to social engineering and phishing specifically?
Yeah, yeah. And for folks who've already seen this on the website, we do have an example on there. But it's as simple as like maybe you're curious to see like which part of this equation, I guess, are you interested in looking at? Are you interested in looking at how people behave when presented with different situations? Maybe you want to try out different pretexts to see how someone behaves. Maybe you want to try to see if the gender aspect matters. Someone who identifies as a man or a woman or a non-binary or whatever it might be. Does that elicit a different response? It could be maybe does the fluctuations in someone's confidence or knowledge, does that result in a different type of a response? Or maybe it's a sensitivity of the information, like the more intense the escalation in terms of what you're trying to acquire. So there's really so many different types of things that you could do. And that's what's really nice. Yes, it's still vishing, but even within that, it's so big that you could try any type of permutation and combination of things. So it could be one thing that you want to maybe try out. Maybe it's a combination of things like maybe it's things like gender combined with confidence or tone of your voice, or maybe you want to see time of day when you're calling someone to see if that makes a difference. If it's around lunchtime, maybe they're more willing to give you your responses because I want to go have my lunch break, or it's the end of the day. Or so what is it that you want to try out? So I don't want to what I really want to emphasize is we want to see your creativity with this. So there's a lot of possibilities that you could try out.
Awesome. So let's say I am a small group of people who want to put together a proposal. Right? We have an idea, we're really excited. Where should someone start?
It's a great question. And one of the things that I would recommend is looking at the sample proposal on the website. So we've put something together there to sort of walk you through what we're kind of sort of looking for. Are you going to be held to that? No, of course not, but it's a frame of reference for you. The second thing is, I would say, if you're not sure, right, about the idea, feel free to reach out to us. Check with us, like, hey, is this something that's doable? And we'd love to have a conversation with you about it. What we wanted I really want to emphasize that we want to encourage you to go out, try things out, as long as it's done in an ethical manner. So check if you're not sure, check with us. Look at sample proposal on the website, and we're here to help.
Perfect. And just a reminder, this isn't like a call for paper where you kind of have your thing out there. You hope it gets accepted. If we see any red flags or anything we have questions on, we'll talk to you. We'll work with you. This has so much room for flexibility. So don't be too scared to put something out there. If we have questions or see potential, we will absolutely reach out to you. Or just be proactive if you have questions and reach out to us. We are here to help because this is just a component I think is really important, especially for social engineering, because there's nothing like this out there. So please, please submit. So with the submission process, it can be a little intimidating. There's quite a few questions. What advice would you have for people who they want to apply, but maybe they don't know where to start?
Mhm, mhm. So one of the things I would, and I do this personally. So when I think about these things, I jot down my ideas and think about how can I connect the dots to see where it might take me. So that's something that I do as a researcher anyway. But some of the other ways that if you're thinking about like where to start, break it down into little pieces. I've always found that that helps me. Oh my gosh, this looks really like big. But if you take it into like little bite size pieces and you can go work through it. So part of it might just be think about your pretext, then think about your persona and give it a lot of thought, be calm and sort of go through it. Use again the sample example that we've provided. And again, to just echo what Snow said, what I said earlier, is if you can even before you submit, if you want to, if you're nervous about it, reach out to us. And even after you submit, like if you really find something that's really exciting, we might say, hey, can you please clarify this or add to this or tweak this part because we really think it's fantastic. So I really want to encourage again, don't be deterred by the words research, right? Like, do not be deterred by that at all. It may sound a little academic, but we've all done research informally. You just may not have called it that, but we do that all the time. We social engineer folks all the time too. So yeah.
Perfect. Now, when you're thinking about these research or experiments, what would you say would make a really good one?
And I think there's a couple of ways that I want to answer that. So one of the things is looking at your independent and dependent variables. And here I go, I just said it's not academic, but I'm going to sound academic. And all that means is basically, what do you think is going to influence your outcome? So, what are those items that you think is going to cause a particular effect in the person that's on the other end of that a phone call? So, things could be like your confidence, your tone, your knowledge of a particular space, the solid pretext that you have, the persona that you take on. So all of these things are going to be sort of in that independent variable phase, sort of category, because they're going to help shape the outcome, which are your dependent variables. So maybe those might be things like the information that you're seeking, or whether or not they're friendly, or whether or not they're rude. So you want to have those things clearly figured out is what causes or brings about that kind of behavior in the person that you're targeting. So understanding what those variables are, I think is really important. Maybe how they interact also is I think something that's interesting that not a lot of work has been done in that space. So the design and the creativity of it, I think, is also really interesting. So are you using the entire time to do one call, or do you want to split it up and maybe try this pretext for the first 5 minutes and then call back with a slightly different pretext or persona? You want to be able to have fun manipulating these different variables to see what that outcome would be. That's something else is it's like what are the variables that you're using? How are they interacting with each other? What kind of hypotheses do you have? What kind of design do you have? And very, very important, which is in the submission form as well, is ethics. We want to make sure that we're not just researchers, but we're also ethical researchers. How are you going to make sure that all of this is following the ethical code of conduct for our community? Those are just some of the things that I would say make for a good experiment, is something that is well thought out.
Perfect. And just a reminder, we actually do have our code of ethics for our community on our website. If anyone was curious what that actually looks like, you can go and review it right now after listening, but it's up there. Everyone who does get in our booth and places a call, whether it's for research, our fishing competition, cold calls, whatever we're doing, they do have to abide by that. Just a friendly reminder there. When we're looking at the submission for research, we ask quite a few questions because we want to know what you're thinking. We want to know what you're planning. But one of the things we actually ask for as well is, who are you planning to call? Now, my question to you, Anshul, is if someone has this great idea for research, they know the personas, the pretext, all these things they want, but they don't know who to call. Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, I'd say there's a couple of ways to sort of go about that. One is think about if you have that idea and you have some like a script ready, think about which context or which target company might be the best fit. For instance, if you're trying to look at customer service, then you probably want to reach out to those organizations that have a dedicated customer service line. Those types of checks, or if you're interested in looking at scheduling, for instance, and getting information about that, most companies are going to have that. But that would be some of the advice that I would give is that is there an intersection? The other thing that I would say is if you have a great idea and it aligns with your own interests, that's what's going to really also help you be successful. If you have a particular hobby or if you're knowledgeable about a particular area like sports, for instance, you might want to call out companies that work in that space because you can sort of weave that into your conversation and you have a greater chance of success. Those types of things are some of the tips that I would recommend you do. And in addition to that, I would say look at YouTube has a whole bunch of examples that you can find on fish calls done in different settings and you get inspired by so many different places and you might hear something that you're like, oh wait, how'd they do that? I'd like to try that in this context. That might be another way that you can figure that out. And again, if you're still not sure, check with us. Maybe we have some recommendations for you. So I think those are some of the ways that you might want to approach that.
Perfect. And then I have one last question for you. And that's when you're going through and you're looking at proposals, what are some of the main things you're looking at? This can hopefully give some people things to consider as they're writing those proposals.
Yeah, yeah. As I mentioned, a good thought out experiment. We talked about that. Your variables, interactions, design, the hypotheses. Is that well thought out? A good thought out experiment. I'd like to also add the creativity of it, the originality of it. You're like, oh, it's like, wow, why did I think about that? And there's a lot of times that I ask that question myself because there's so many amazing ideas that are out there. Those are some of the things we're looking for. Contribution to the social engineering domain, I think is really big. For me personally, another big one is does your excitement and passion come through? Because if you're passionate about it, you're going to do really well in it. And if you really genuinely believe in something, it would be the of the experiment, the originality of it, the creativity of it, the ethics of it, the contribution and your excitement and passion. I think that would capture what we're looking for.
Perfect. These were great. Hopefully, if research was something that you wanted to submit, but you weren't sure, maybe you're on the fence, maybe you're scared, thought it was very formal and rigid, and it's not. I promise you, it's not. We want to work with you. We want this to thrive in our community. We want people to have takeaways and further our craft. Hopefully, if you have any questions, please reach out. But just to kind of wrap up, some reminders about the villages here. We're just about a month away, just over a month. Super exciting. Our schedule is up live. We have a whole section dedicated to research calls on Sunday. But if you want to see our schedule, you can go to SE Community, and at the top, we have village information and we have our schedule there. Feel free to check that out. We currently have a t shirt fundraiser. I'm actually wearing the one from our last one. Super excited I got that in. But we do have a new t shirt fundraiser up with just our logo on front of polos in both men's and women's sizes and styles. So sure to check that out. We actually have that posted on our Twitter account, which is SEC_DEFCON, DEFCON. And really just hopefully you submit something. We would love to work with you. We would love to see submissions come in and just further our crafts. Any questions, please reach out. We would love to have you in this village. Come check out the community. Whether you submit something or not, we hope to see you this year at DEF CON 30. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks, Ochel.